Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we radiate Wellbeing with Oliver Rolfe, who is the author of The Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing Today, a step-by-step guide to the relationship between your physical, mental, energetic, and emotional health. That is quite a mouthful. Hello, Oliver. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Christy. Thank you so much for having me here. It was a pleasure to connect with you in person, and even more so to finally get onto this podcast with you.
I know we've put this off so many times for a variety of reasons, and we're finally here today. And I'm thrilled because, wellness is a great topic. This episode is going to drop toward the end of January, perhaps the beginning of February, definitely still during flu, COVID, RSV, sick season. So let's get into it. There's so many books out there on health and well-being, also holistic topics. Why did you decide to write this one?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why this book is out. I'll give you a shorter possible view as possible of why we're here today. Invariably, I've had a lot of experiences in my life, and I take that positively, even the ones that people would say would be slightly more difficult. So just to give you a very quick nutshell of everything I've experienced. So from the age of sort of 5 and 6, my parents were divorced, which I think is something that happens fairly frequently, unfortunately, in the Western world in particular. But that divorce affected my family unit quite a lot. So my brother ended up in rehab. My sister was anorexic and bulimic. My father had 2 mental breakdowns. And throughout that period of time, between the ages 6 and 16, I myself had about 45 general anesthetic operations. Which for me, it meant that I couldn't maybe do the same thing as other people. I was off school for a period of time throughout these operations. I was also heavily overweight compared to what I weigh now in particular, which I was probably about 55 pounds more heavier by the age of 13 than I am now. So again, things I had to look at within myself. But subsequently to that, so if I was to fast forward through quite a lot of events throughout my life, about 10, 11 years ago, I slipped a disc in my back for the first time, somewhere around the chest area, but the heart area really, but at the back, of course. And now that one slip disc ended up moving to 7 slip discs and a diagnosis of ankylosing spondylitis, which is an inflammatory disease of the spine. So with this diagnosis 10 years ago, I immediately, my life changed quite dramatically, and I was affected in many different ways, including not being able to play soccer anymore, which was really a lifelong passion and probably one of the hardest things I ever had to give up. And funnily, it's amazing how you can still utilize your energy and passion for something like that and put it into other efforts, which I now manage my son's football team. And I think I'm probably one of the most involved coaches that are there. But I absolutely love imparting the knowledge that I learn on a pitch, as well as obviously off the pitch as well, hence the book. So throughout this 10-11 year period, I changed the way I ate, I lived, I exercised, the vitamins I was putting in my body, the types of food I was utilizing. And I'm very aware of myself at that time. So I was very fortunate to meet a lady who is one of the co-editors of my book. And I'm so fortunate to have 4 co-editors or real professional co-editors to assist the Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing Today. And this lady I call my spiritual mother, Sarah Leslie. And there is always a saying that a teacher arrives when you need it the most, not when you're looking for it. And, we really connected at the exact time that I needed it. I focused on a lot of meditation with her. I joined a circle with her, and learned a lot about the spiritual world in many respects, but the holistic world at the same time, and the energetic world. But I think the whole process was about learning about myself, more importantly. And health or wellness or well-being is individual. It's not a blanket sheet. No one can say, right, if I gave you my specific pamphlet, which is kind of what my book is to a degree, but it wouldn't necessarily be 100% right for everyone. It wouldn't be. It couldn't be. It would be almost, I would say, an impossibility, because we are all unique. We are all individuals, and we all have our individual health and our individual well-being. But the whole point of the holistic health guide, and the holistic guide, is the fact that we're looking at the wholeness, the completeness of self. And the completeness of self is really not just the physical, but it is looking after the mental, energetic, and emotional bodies. And I would hasten to say that actually it's the mental, energetic, and emotional bodies that ends up affecting the physical. And if we get the energetic, mental, and emotional right, then actually our physicals become stronger at the same time. So I'm a great believer of that. I'm an advocate of that, obviously, with my book. But to have this book, which, it came out 4 weeks ago yesterday, which it feels like it came out years ago, amazingly. But for me, and I can't tell you how truly proud I am of this book. And for the fact that it reached top 50, actually number 41 in the best-selling books on Amazon, was just one of the best things that I've received this year. It was an absolute pleasure and joy to be there.
Well, what I love about this book is, and I totally identify with what you're saying, because when you write a book, you're working on it for years, and then finally it comes out, and you feel like, oh my God, this has been in the world forever. But what I love about this book is that it goes over the physical, the immune system, food, nutrition, but also, and the energy system, which is right up my alley as a Reiki master and hypnotherapist. So the chakra system, the energy system, but also numerology and emotional intelligence, and the unspoken language of the body, which is also right up, which is what I do. So, wow. Why did you, so for example, numerology, we would not think of numerology as a holistic practice, as holistic well-being, but you include it in your book. Why is that?
Absolutely. So, again, was unbelievably fortunate to work with a lady by the name of Anne Perry. Now, Anne Perry is an international, well-known and well-renowned international numerologist. So throughout my period of creating the book and really understanding about the detail of the book, I've landed on numerology. And really, numerology is a wonderful tool for self-awareness. It really is a phenomenal tool for self-awareness. So thank God in the book, what I've done is take research that has been conducted over decades and decades and decades of some of the best minds and scientists in the world. And every scientist who've been around usually focus on one area. And that one area could be sleep, or it could be exercise or nutrition, or whatever it might be. There are a plethora of situations, including screens and screen times, which I talk about. So it's utilizing that knowledge and that understanding. So when I look at the world in terms of chakras or numerology, a lot of people would take a step back and go, that's a bit out there, and I don't know about it, and maybe feel a little bit confused or fearful to even entertain what this means. So what I've done within this is to really break it down and explain the detail behind numerology. So Pythagoras created modern numerology 2,500 years. I think 2,500 years ago. Actually, was it 2,500 BC? I think it was 2,500 years ago. In fact, rather than BC, because that'd be way too far. And really what he felt as Pythagoras is that if you boil anything down, and everything down, in fact, in the universe, it comes down to a number. Everything.
Yes.
All numbers. It's so, this is where you kind of connect to the matrix and the numbers coming down the screens and that kind of scenario. And it rolls around in my head when I talk about numbers in this way. But bottom line is everything is numbers, whether it's the coding on computers, whether it's the DNA of an atom, it boils down to a number. So Pythagoras, amazingly enough, understood that each individual number had its own vibration, energy, and personality. And that's where numerology comes from. So taking that one step further forward, what you get with numerology is there's a lot of core numbers. And the core numbers are developed from your given birth name at birth and your date of birth. Those are the two numbers you need to basically work out your core numbers. You can go into a bit more detail with specific numbers, but if you just take that as an overall view, which I utilize in the book with Anne, it gives such great clarity in color. So if you were to look at a life path number, your personality number, your heart's desire or soul number, what your soul wants, what your drive is, why you're here effectively. And what this book does, and the practice of it, we break down the two different areas in the way that you can get your own numbers. There are two different methods, straight line and other. And we've understood, or we explained which one is, dare I say, what we believe is the right method forward. And I think it's the most chosen way forward, put it that way. But once you go into your numbers, and for me, I connected so strongly to numerology. In fact, I connect to so much that is outside of the norm, because I believe that we should utilize everything in life. I believe we should do everything in life. We only have a very short period of time. And, my book starts with, we only have a moment in time, which explains all of my experiences in life that I've had. And I'll throw in the fact that I often forget about these two or miss these two. I almost passed away twice by the time I was 8 years old. The first one, I was on a rowboat accident, and we'll do a long story short, my family were in a boat, the boat flipped over, I got stuck underneath. And my sister, who was 7 at the time, went under the water, pulled me out from under the boat, and got me free. And the second time was during my 45 operations, when I was about, I think it was 8 years old in particular. So I'm not a big fan of injections, never have been. And when you're a kid, even less so. So they used to put this numbing cream on the back of your hand, and I hated the cream. It was a mental thing. I can't really explain what it was, but really didn't like it. So they thought, okay, right, if he doesn't like the injection, the only other option is the gas. Now, having gas to knock you out, it's one thing, but the smell of the gas, I remember this so clearly as a young boy, I really didn't like it. So they used to kind of lay the gas and point the thing up to your face when you're lying down, and it would go towards your mouth and you invariably pass out. So after about 3 or 4, maybe 5 operations, they kept on doing this. And I was like, I don't like this. So I'll tell you what, this is a mental thought I was going through my head. I thought I'll take a big breath, and then I won't have the gas, and I'll kind of get through it. Now, the problem is, rather than put the pipe on my chest and put it to my face, put a gas mask over my face. So I was thinking, right, how can I get away with this? My plan was still going to happen. So I thought, right, I'm going to take a big gulp of breath, of what I thought was air, but happens to be gas. And I stopped breathing. I completely passed out. And my mother, who was in the room, I think as a lot of parents would be for children, she was in the anaesthetist room. She looked down and she kind of got the anaesthetist's attention, said, why is he turning blue? They all turned round from what they were doing, kicked my mother out of the room, resuscitated me, and basically started again. Needless to say, I never did that again. So, all of these experiences I utilize, and I don't look back with any negativity with anything that's happened in my life, difficult relationships, et cetera, and my health issues. these are experiences that even I remember going through saying, right, these are not just for me, these are for other people. And it's strange looking back at that now, because I genuinely thought about this and I genuinely knew that this was the case. So when I look at numerology and you kind of connect it to my life path and what I'm supposed to learn and what I'm supposed to do here, my personality, my heart's desire, for me, it really connected so much so that I had to speak about it. It's just such an important self-awareness tool that you're getting information that it's specific to you, and it's the guidelines and the path that you're supposed to be learning, the questions that you're supposed to be answering in your lifetime, why you're here, your desire about what it is, what's the bigger picture desire we've got. And realistically, I think most people hit a point in their life, and this connects to the chakras very nicely, whereas chakras are developed on a 7-year cycle. So for years in my life, I always used to hear that, life's a 7-year cycle, and no one ever could explain why. The reason life is a 7-year cycle is basically because our chakras open up on a 7-year basis. So by the time you're 42, your sixth chakra opens up, which is your third eye. Now, I think a lot of people between the ages of, I would say, 41 to maybe 48, 49, go through what a lot of people would call a midlife crisis. Now, that for me is not a midlife crisis, it's a midlife awakening. And I genuinely believe this wholeheartedly. And the awakening it's your spiritual element, your energetic element opening up to the universe, and your soul's desire is coming through at such a higher level that you feel uncomfortable. You feel, well, not for everyone, by the way, but a lot of people feel that they're not doing what they should be doing. They're not on their right path. They're not connected in the way that they should be in life. And this is basically why it happens. It's the fact that we've all got a path line to follow, and yet, unfortunately, due to either money issues or whatever it might be, that we're focusing on things that are really there to make money and to help us live on a daily basis, rather than fulfilling what is in our soul and what is in our heart on a continual basis. And it's funny you say about the subconscious and the conscious. It's something I'm exceptionally aware of, exceptionally connected to. And I completely believe our bodies tell us so many things that we are very, very unaware of. And this is the whole point of what I'm trying to assist people with, what the Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing today assists with. It is self-awareness, self-understanding, and self-knowing. Because really, the key to health and or well-being is understanding of self. Because once you understand yourself, once you're aware of yourself, once you're able to really connect with what you need and who you are, then you can start to prepare yourself to help others. I think until that point, I know a lot of people go out there and are constantly wanting to help others, but they neglect themselves to a real negative element. And, my message to everyone is focus on yourself first, make sure that you're right and your foundations are right, and then you can progress to help others. I know it's a very long-winded way to answer that question. Sorry, Christy.
No, I think there is no simple answer to that, right? Because that's what makes this book the holistic guide. It's completely holistic. It looks at everything.
Hi there. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you about a very special event that we have coming up with Radiate Wellness. This is the Inner Journey, Discovering Your Soul's Path 3-day spiritual and metaphysical retreat. This is an immersive experience, March 31st to April 2nd. So it's all inclusive. So that's lodging, meals, snacks, and wonderful workshops. So what are the workshops that we have coming up? First, we're going to be doing a sound healing concert with Susan Walter, who's a visionary angel artist and angel communicator who paints beautiful angel portraits. And she'll be leading us in a sound healing concert with crystal bowls, and there will be energy work alongside that sound healing. We're going to be doing a group QHHT session, that is quantum healing hypnosis technique, with me, Christy, and we will visit one past life and one potential future life, just to look at the arc of your soul and your soul's purpose. We will also be connecting to your inner self and your intentions for 2023. We'll be doing energy workshops and energy healing workshops. And we will do a meditation to meet your angel or angels and learn how to work with them. We will also have a special guest from Switzerland, from Geneva, Switzerland. Mary Jane Stodeman will be joining us to talk about your soul's journey with astrology. So our leaders for this retreat are myself, Christy Clemens Hoffman, Kathy Lesmeister, who's another one of our wonderful practitioners with Radiate Wellness, Susan Walter, who is a Kansas City-based visionary artist and sound bowl enthusiast, as well as Mary Jane Stodeman, tarot master and astrology teacher in Switzerland. So all of these events are all covered under one price. And there is an early bird special. You can save $100 on this retreat until January 31st, 2023. And then regular registration continues afterward. And again, that will be a $100 discount up until January 31st. You can find out more information and register at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. It's right at the top of the homepage. Hope to see you there. Did you know that Radiate Wellness is more than just a podcast? That's right. We're also a comprehensive, holistic wellness practice. Find out about our services, practitioners, and upcoming events at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. While you're there, visit our podcast page to read more about our great guests and even donate to the podcast. If you like our podcast, you can help in other ways as well, like subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening right now. Tell a friend, a family member, or a coworker about the great content you find here. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, or a positive review. Sounds like a small thing, but it really helps. You might like to know about our Facebook communities while we're at it. We have a free community, the Radiate Wellness Community, on Facebook for news and great free content. Our subscribers group is Radiate You, as in the letter U, but also, well, you. There you'll find curated replays of past classes, guest interviews, and more. And now, back to our podcast and back to our guest.
Now, I would imagine that people listening to this podcast would assume that you're some sort of, you've got a naturopath or a chiropractor or in the wellness field, but you come from you have a financial background.
I do. I very much so. I'm not what you would call a usual person to write a book such as this.
On holistic well-being. Yeah. So how did you find your way to, just kind of were you always a holistic type of person? Did you always feel like there was something more to what we're seeing and doing?
Categorically, yes. I've been very aware of a lot of energy around me my whole life. I have a huge amount of experience-based knowledge, both health, well-being, spiritual and emotional. I've probably had more experiences in my life than most people would go through in 5 lives. And I don't take that as a negative. I take that as a genuinely a wonderful positive, especially now. I wouldn't want to go through all these things again. I've done them and they're in where they are. But I'm genuinely pleased that I've got the experiences in my locker, so to speak. So in my life, I've always been around the spiritual world in one form or another. My father's very spiritual. My mother's very spiritual. My mother actually is highly spiritual, but doesn't necessarily lean on it in any way. She's a real giver. Her mentality is constantly helping others. And in fact, going on what I said before about looking after yourself, it's something I constantly say to her the whole time. Focus on yourself, do the things that are right for you first, then go and help others. But, owing to the fact that my parents were divorced, I spent a huge amount of time with my mother. And she is a generally wonderful person. She does so much for so many people. And whenever she is close to anyone spiritual, they automatically connect to her. They can automatically feel her energy. They know that she's from a higher plane. And for me, I've always wanted and had a connection with everything to do with the spiritual world. Hence the reason why, when my life changed and I couldn't go and run around a football pitch and do whatever I used to do, I went straight towards the spiritual world. And to join a circle was one of the best things that happened to me, because the experiences that gave me as well, and the connection to not only my spirit world, but just the spirit world in general, opening myself up to receive for other people as well. I say there was a story. I'm often in New York quite a lot, so I'm based in London, England, but I travel a lot. And love travel, because I love seeing places. I love connecting to people and different cultures and different areas. But I probably spend about a month and a half in New York every year, give or take. And in New York, the energy is absolutely off the chart strong. I don't know if I've ever experienced the amount of energy anywhere else but in New York. And I'm sure there are other places. And if there are, please tell me, because I'd love to go and experience that as well. But, I've been in different elements, and, I've had messages come through me for other people, and it's almost they are asking me for the messages without, in some ways, even knowing it. And in two scenarios. So one was generally, I laughed because it was quite strange. One, for some reason, I remember doing this. I was unpacking my bag in the middle of a lobby at a hotel. I assumed that I had checked out. I just wanted to rejig my bag. And I can still remember this. I was just wondering why I was doing it. And there was this really young bell guy. And I got an overwhelming sense to speak to him about, I think at the time, what he was doing in his life, and a message. So anyway, I walked over to him with my bag and I said, look, could you please put this away? And I said, look, it's going to sound really strange, but I've got this message for you. And I said whatever I said, and he kind of stopped and he looked at me and he just went, how do you know that? And I was like, look, it's not about what I know. It's about what I know that I need to say to you. And we had this conversation, went on for about 25 minutes, half an hour. And he actually, we left the conversation, a massive smile on his face. There was something which came from my words that gave him an answer, a message, a form of intuition that just connected so well with him that he was blown away and I was blown away. And it was just a wonderful scenario. And again, it's just this New York energy. And another time happened. So I was actually, throughout my financial work, I basically guide and advise a lot of CEOs, banks and businesses throughout the financial world globally, in fact. And there's one guy who's actually now gone on to build his own bank, and it's doing exceptionally well. And this was about, I'm talking about maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that. And before he was doing this, I think he was getting a lot of messages and speaking to a lot of people. And his wife, who I'm very friendly with, we're all very, very friendly, even to this day, said, look, would you come and sit down with my, I think, boyfriend at the time and just speak to him? And I just said, yeah, I know I need to meet him. And it was, again, just so strange. Don't know who the guy is. And I walked down, and they were sitting there, and I sat at the bed. I sat at the table, and the first words came out of my mouth was like, what's taking you so long? Why aren't you doing this yet? Go already. It's like, started having a go at him for about half an hour. I was saying, wow, if you didn't understand where this came from, you would just think that I'm some crazy guy having a go at this other poor guy. And again, we then spent, I think, 7 hours together that evening. I think I left at like 4 a.m, and we were doing all kind of conversations and whatever else. But just an unbelievable scenario of connectivity. And I believe there is, I believe we all get messages the whole time on a continual basis.
Right.
I believe that the ideas that we get are given to millions of people at the same time, and yet only very few people act on them.
Right.
I do believe that, there are things that need to be done here, and we are just given a constant guidance. And I think I would say that anyone listening to this would have had a moment in time where they've had a phenomenal idea, whatever that idea is. It could be, for me, actually, my name's Oliver, and I always thought about creating a clothing brand called Ollie, OLI, with my signature. Subsequently enough, about 4 years ago, I was in some kind of shopping area, and someone has created the design Ollie as a clothing brand in exactly the way that I would have done it. Now, everyone can say that's coincidence. There are no coincidences. If you're getting a message, either you're going to do it or someone else is going to do it. It might not be for you, but there will be one that will connect to you. But don't ignore these messages, because these are the messages that will take you to whatever you're supposed to be doing next. And that's kind of how the second book started as well. My first book came out in end of October 2019. And I wanted to wait till 2020 to market it. And the first book was called The Survivor's Guide to Your Career Today. So very much focused on what would be my core day-to-day work.
Right.
Yeah. And it's focused on 16 to 25-year-olds, and really a perfect guide for students, especially at the end of education, just before career and early stages of career as well. Anyway, I wanted to wait till 2020 to market. I thought, great, 2020 is the year that we've all been waiting for, flying cars and what's it called, hoverboards. Obviously, none of that, we're miles away from that. But I thought, right, we'll do that. Obviously, within 2 months of 2020, the world changes dramatically, and that doesn't happen. So I was sitting in the garden at the time with my wife and kids, and the kids were running around doing whatever. And it was a beautiful day. I remember the weather was amazing through COVID. And I turned around to my wife and I said, I can't do this. And she looked at me and said, you can't do what? And I said, I can't sit here for the next 6 months, year, whatever it is going to be, and do nothing. I need to go and do something. I need to go and write this book. And bless her, she's amazing, and she's such a great mother and an amazing person anyway. And she said, but you go and do what you need to do. So within that 2.5 week period, I've still got a piece of paper, which is actually just down to my right, kind of been hidden away, which was an A4 sheet of paper with all of the titles or subtitles of the book. And literally, barring one thing, which I crossed out in my first review of what I was going to write, everything was written exactly in the order it was put on that paper. And within 11 months, I finished the initial draft of the book and had a publishing deal with JHP and O Books, which is a wonderful, wonderful company that really I've enjoyed greatly to work with.
Yes, they are lovely. Excuse me. So let's turn back to the holistic guide to your health and well-being today. The subtitle, of course, is a step-by-step guide. So what steps would you hope the reader would take through this book? How would you intend for people to use it?
That's a great question, genuinely. So first and foremost, I've been genuinely blessed with the reviews that have come through for this book. They've been amazing, and that helped me massively, and it helped my confidence with everything that I was really putting across, because everyone's connected to what the message is, and everyone's understood how to use the book by literally by reading it themselves. And you could pick up the book and you could start on page 150 and it would make no difference. It's not a book you have to read A to Z. As a lot of the reviews said, and for me, I completely agree with this. It's not for you to read it and to put it away. It's for you to read it and leave out and pick it up when you need, and you have a feeling to look at something, or you want to get some knowledge that comes from somewhere. It really is something that I think you should read at least some of it A to Z so you get an idea of what's in there. But actually, there are so much information and detail across the whole book that actually you can utilize it for years. And in fact, this one here is my personal one that I use on a continual basis. And sometimes I would just pick it up. And in fact, I've just picked it up, and funnily enough, it's turned to, you probably can't see it, but the sixth chakra. And that's the third eye chakra, which I talked about before, which opens up between the ages of 36 to 42, which is the period of my life that I'm in now. There are no coincidences. That is not marked in my book, by the way. That's not something that I've had pushed down. That was something that I may now go and have a look at that, because I haven't had a chance to read it for a while. And even actually, I did this before. I picked it up the other day, and it went to the gut, really. So the gut is one of the most important things in our body. So Antoine Duchamp created something called the terrain theory being the terrain of the gut. And I was reading through it and how important it is. I was like, this is great. This is really good information. And it's the whole thing is whilst, yes, I've put it together and I'm very aware that I've done this, it is, again, some amazing people that have worked so hard to create this information, this guidance, with the most scientific knowledge behind them. And that's why I'm so, so pleased to put this across, because I know that the information is absolutely right. And it's a hard thing to say, because it sounds kind of like I'm selling it. Trust me, I'm not. I cannot tell you how honored I am and how honored I feel, more importantly, that I've been able to be the one to create this. And I really mean that, because, it's something that I actually think, I've done a lot of things in my life. This is my biggest achievement in my life, and my kids, obviously, and blah, blah, blah. But in terms of all of the stuff that you would normally say, or someone would give a political answer and saying, I started my company when I was 28. I've technically been very successful in what I've done. But actually to do something like this and to be able to give back to what I hope will end up being many, 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 many thousands of people throughout its lifetime gives me so much genuine joy. It really does. And as you mentioned with the Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing today, the step-by-step element to this guide is the connection between the physical and mental, the mental and energetic, the emotional and physical, the mental and emotional. All of these bodies connect to each other as a whole. That's the whole point, is that you can't just look at your mental health and expect your world to be right. You can't just look at the physical world in the same vein. People don't know what the energetic world is. And people go, well, we don't have energy in our body. That's rubbish. I was like, well, no, it's scientifically proven we do. Even if you have a look at your brain is a hotbed of electrical magnetic energy on a continual basis. It's firing every second. Your heart, if there was no energy, or there was no electricity, your heart would stop beating in a flash. This is why we use MRIs. This is why we use ECGs. We are genuinely energy, and our chakras, for want of a better word, are energy transducers. So to give you an example, Christy, I think a lot of people felt, and obviously we're over Zoom now, and I think people are much more comfortable with Zoom, which is great. But there's that, whilst you can, really transmit energy over a Zoom or a video call, I think a lot of people felt that they missed that connection with someone. They missed feeling the other person when they spoke to them. And a lot of people said this, I miss the feeling. And I often smiled as soon as they said this, because I kind of go, well, I know why you miss the feeling, because we genuinely, if you go to the auras, we all have our auras, and this is the part of the chakras, and we have this energy around us on a continual basis. Whereas, if you walk into a room or someone walks in a room, they can change the energy in a room. They can change how people feel. They can change how people. This is the energy that we're putting across. Mm-hmm. So, if we sat down together in person, I would, depending on how you're feeling, you could have. You could be effervescent with your heart and be open and loving, and I would be able to feel that. In the same way as if you were in pain, and genuine, if you were in pain, I would be able to feel you and see it also across your body. And this goes back to the subconscious element as well, about what does our subconscious control? Well, the subconscious controls all of the energy, controls all of our bodily function. It controls your subconscious language. Now, it's something that I talk about in the Holistic Guide as well, your subconscious language, your body language. Now, most language is actually non-verbal. And so I've got to get this right. If I'm right in saying it's like 73% of language is non-verbal. Then you've got vocal and tonal. So if you're talking about 73% of what we do is how we portray ourselves, how our bodies are. No one thinks about that consciously. No one. Well, and if you do, you're basically probably trying to fool someone if you are thinking about your body language constantly. But if you allow yourself to be 100% you, then people would see by how your hair is, how your fingernails are, what you're doing. Are you tapping on the desk? Are you fidgeting? Are you making eye contact? Are you constantly looking up to the left or looking up to the right? Which is, again, something that people can be misled by. The left is often you're looking at your factual brain, in the right you're looking at your creative. But the whole point with body language, it's about that specific second. It's not about, if I said something 5 minutes ago and made a different body reaction, well, that doesn't matter about 5 minutes ago. It's in that moment about either what I've said, what we're discussing. It's all about the moments with body language. So it has to be present, or you have to be present, which again goes on to, I would say, 3 books which I talk about, and I feel that everyone should read personally and should connect to as well, which is Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, Don Miguel Ruiz, The 4 Agreements, and Malcolm Gladwell, Blink. Now, Gladwell's done a lot of other books, which I love as well. But The Power of Now is brilliant. It really makes, for me, perfect sense. But the point for me that I take out of it, and I utilize a lot of the lessons in Eckhart Tolle's work to highlight how I see things. But really, this is the only moment that we are consciously aware of. There, obviously, for me, time is one. There is no past, present, or future. There is just one form of time. However, in our conscious mind and our conscious body, there is only this moment. You and I are connecting, and if I don't connect to you and I'm not present in this moment, then it's not what it should be. The more present you are in the moment you're in, the better you can progress with yourself in life. So if you were to talk about how one would help themselves in that step-by-step mentality, the step-by-step is be present. Realistically, that's the most important lesson most people first and foremost need to learn. Be present. Be present for your children. Be present for yourself. Be present for the people around you. Be present in nature. Be present when you exercise. Be present when you go for a walk. be present when you do your work, be present when you speak to someone else. Being in the moment is literally the only thing we have. And it's so important that we connect to that moment. And then, Don McGraw released the 4 agreements and subsequently the 5th agreement. Phenomenal book, 4 or 5 simple points. But one of the ones I often pick out, so be immaculate with your word, I think is probably the biggest lesson that anyone could learn in life. Don't say what you don't mean, do what you say. And then one of the things which I really like is actually do your best. And it seems so simple. Always do your best.
Change moment to moment, day by day. But if we're only doing the 1st agreement and the 4th agreement, be impeccable with your word and always do your best. That's all we can do.
Yeah, literally.
That's all that's within our power. Right.
And that's it.
In this book, The Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing Today, you bring in several practitioners and professionals. How did you select them?
I don't believe anyone selects anyone. So I can tell you specifically how all of them came about. So the 30th psychologist was actually talk about synchronistic moment. So I actually met this gentleman his name's David Moxon. So I met David by a former boss of mine. So I started my company 13 years ago, and I worked with this gentleman probably another 5 years before that. So probably about 18 years ago. And as a group, so there were about 5 of us in this group of a company, which is probably about 15, that stay together, and we've got a group together, and we often keep in touch. We, wishing each other Merry Christmas today. And the former boss turned around to all of us. So look, why don't we get together? We haven't been together for 15 years. Why don't we meet for a drink? So we all got together. I happened to get there early. I had my first book with me because I wanted to give a book to all of the guys. And lo and behold, David was there because he's a very good friend of my former boss. So I sit down next to him. We start chatting and getting to know each other and blah, blah, blah. And then subsequently, the other guys, they came for a drink and then they go. And then the 3 of us are left together. So we said, look, why don't we get some dinner together? So ended up speaking for hours and hours. And we both kind of turned around to each other and said, we're going to do something together, aren't we? And we both knew it. It was so strange. It was like, he was like, yeah, we're going to do something. So this is the end of 2019 before I even thought about the 2nd book coming out.
Right.
So as soon as the book started, I called this guy up and said, look, I know what we're going to do together. I understand what it is now. It's this book. And he went, you're absolutely right. And that was number 1. I thought, okay, fantastic. The 2 of them were very, very easy. One was my spiritual mother, as I mentioned before, Sarah Leslie, who I've known for well over a decade and spent so much time together in meditation and circles and spiritual groups and weekends and whatever else. So that was always going to happen, and I was always going to lean on her. The other one, my brother, who, as I mentioned right at the beginning, he was in rehab for drugs, drunk, and gambling. Now, he's turned his life 360 and now runs rehab centres in the whole of the UK for alcohol addiction, drug addiction, and also for wellness as well. So it made so much sense for us to connect on our same journeys. And as we cross, this is definitely a crossroads in our journeys together. And the final one was Anne Perry, as I mentioned. And Anne and I connected whilst I was writing the book. And I wanted to have more experience and more understanding with numerology. So Anne and I really gravitated towards Anne through her videos and what she was saying. And actually, she was a specialist in a specific master number, of which that is what I am. So our connections worked really well. So we had a very, very long session together. And I said to Anne, I said, look, I am writing a book. Would you like to help me put it together, or at least one part of it? And she said, absolutely. And all of these things just happened one after the other, connection, timing. It was absolutely wonderful to see synchronicity at its best in the universe, and doing what I do as a job. So my day job is a global headhunter, as well as having life and career and health and well-being consultancy. Now, in a world where I constantly connect to thousands of people, to see things happen in moments of time that no one could prepare better than the actual synchronicity itself is mind-blowing. And this is why when you're in I basically think the world moves like this, and I'm kind of in the middle of it, and it just connects whenever it's right. It's quite hard to explain that, but it is amazing. And that synchronicity is what brought all of these people together in this book.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking at your website now, Spartan-int for international.com. And yeah, these you've really got a star team here of people who bring a variety of experiences to the table. And I've not seen anything like it. I mean, you've got, of course, financial advisors, psychologists, numerology, rehabilitation and wellness, which I just think is so needed. All of this together, operating as a team, that's quite unique. And I absolutely love it. So if you were to have one wish for this book, what would that be?
It's got to be the connection to others. For me, it's got to be the connection to others. Whilst I would love to say I want this to be successful for me, realistically, I want this to be a massive connection to others. I believe in it so much. And it's often so. I was speaking to a couple of other people. I was in Paris a couple of weeks ago for work, and every time I speak about it, I get really emotional about it because it matters so much to me. Yeah. It's not a thing just to make money. I believe that when you do something for your passion, and you do something that is, I'm going to say, otherworldly in for want of a better word, the connection to others with this book is so important, which is why I'm so proud of the connection so far, and the fact that I've received very random messages on LinkedIn. I've got a big following of well over 20,000 people, but I actually had a PhD doctor send me a message last week when I had COVID, which I was running at 1,000 miles an hour this year. And then COVID went from literally 1,000 to 0. And I was lying in bed, kind of hoping and wanting the book to go further and quicker and out there. And obviously, one of my lessons that I need to learn is patience. I'm not a wonderfully patient person, unfortunately. And I wanted some news. I wanted something. And I got this message. And the message quite simply said, I've just read your amazing book, The Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing today. Thank you so much for creating this awesome book. And that was it. And I take that so much because it was what I needed. I just needed something. And I know it sounds a little bit, well, why should I need something from someone else? But it was such a well-timed, short boost that hard to put it in words, really.
Yeah, validation, a confirmation that yes, it was worth the sacrifice to put this book together. And it takes a lot to put a book together. The book, again, is The Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing Today, a step-by-step guide to the relationship between your physical, mental, energetic, and emotional health, by Oliver Rolfe. And I would say maybe the title should be The Holistic Guide to Your Life. A step-by-step guide to all the things, because it really is completely holistic. When I was first approached by your publicist, I thought, okay, well, it's a health book. It's about, nutrition and vitamins and, these things. But no, it's a guide to your holistic life. And where can people find it?
So you can literally buy it anywhere that you would find a normal book. It's at Barnes & Noble. It is available globally. Again, super proud of that. But Amazon's amazing. So I was, I said, top 50 best-selling book on Amazon within health and well-being, which again, I'm going to constantly say because that's an amazing thing for me. Literally, yeah, I was on cloud 9 for about 3 weeks at least. It was absolutely amazing. But yeah, order it online, order it. Things for me, what I would say is that, if you ever struggle to buy anyone a present in particular, this is a perfect gift to give someone. Giving someone the gift of health and well-being, I think, is literally the best thing that you can offer them. And it's got so much detail that anyone of any age can pick up and find a connection to. And for me, if someone looked at the screen times and realized that blue light at night changes your circadian rhythms to make you not so tired, great, that's fine. One thing's brilliant. Learn it and make sure you try not to do it or change it slightly. But that's the wonderful thing. And you've really articulated the holistic guide so well in everything that you're saying. And it really could have been called The Holistic Guide to Your Life, but I think it was a bit too grandiose if I would have gone for that straight away.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Oliver, it's been delightful talking with you. You've got such a breadth of knowledge, and I think this book is very, very helpful. I wish I could have given it to my dad, but the timing was not good. And I think this is, I can't wait to read all of it. I've just read, bits and pieces, but I can't wait to read all of it. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today. Your information is going to be in the show notes. So everybody, please go to spartan-int.com and find out more about Oliver and his team. Thank you so much.
Radiate Wellness is an international community of holistic and alternative healers dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.